is of absolutely no value. No value. You must treat her like somebody special, somebody that you love. You need to accept your partner just like they are and make them know that you do. You don't get married and have the attitude of, well, if you'll change this, if you'll get better at this. I've known missionaries, jokingly maybe, to say, I'm buying my wife exercise equipment. And all I could think of is, I'm sure hope my wife wasn't buying me exercise equipment as a hint for me to get in shape. I hope that there are no contingency plans. If you're not a good husband, I already have one or two out there waiting on me. That's never our attitude. I chose my wife for an entire lifetime. I chose my wife for an entire lifetime. And you need to do the same. You need to always make sure that you have chosen your wife and you're going to live with her and love her and spend time with her for the rest of her life. It's not an exceptional thing. Do not have expectations that they will get better or they need to change. I was alarmed. I am alarmed when I watch young missionaries getting divorces. I'm alarmed when I hear of brothers and sisters that went from foreign countries to other countries and they've been married 20 years, 25 years, and they're getting a divorce. I don't understand. And so I want to talk to you very seriously about working on it. There are stresses on your marriage and the ministry. There are stresses maybe that other families don't know. You are giving away your money, you're giving away your time, you are working hard and all that to be a good missionary, and you kind of like want your wife to be the next best preacher for women there is in the world. And you've got all these things going on with her, and you're just asking for trouble. So I want to challenge you not to be letting that happen in your marriage. You need to write notes, write some sweet notes and tell them, hey, I love you. And write notes like you did when you were dating. Write notes. Learn to wink at each other across the room so that everybody knows, boy, look at them. They are in love. Figure out ways that you can communicate love even in public. It could be the squeeze of a hand. It could be the nod of a head. It could be a light touch on the back. But it's a way to say, boy, I love you, and I want you to know that. Right here in public, I'm saying to you, I love you. I'm not being overly showy. I'm not trying to make a scene. I'm just letting you know I am in love with you. And I think that you are important. Remember that you are to love first. Do not wait for your partner to come loving you or fixing things. I just want to say that to you because I think it's so important. Do you understand what's going on in the marriages that are breaking up? Most likely, both of them want things to work out, but he's like, if she'll fix it, we can save this marriage. And she's like, if he'll fix it, we'll fix this marriage. But we're to be like Jesus, and Jesus came to us when we didn't even want to. And husband, you are the example of Jesus in this marriage. You should take it very seriously that you're going to express love to your wife. I don't want to beat a dead horse. I don't want to keep pushing this, but I'm watching you, and you have this idea that your marriage will not be in trouble. You have this idea that your family will be the exception, but you have to work at it to keep things going like they ought to. Forgive each other. Your husband is going to say some things he shouldn't say. Your wife's going to say some things she shouldn't say. There's going to be some things done in your marriage that are going to hurt your feelings, but we are a forgiven people. And as a forgiven people, we forgive others. As a forgiven people, we forgive others. And especially, love covers a multitude of sins. So forgive your partner in marriage. Add grace to your partner's life. Add grace. Grace is giving undeserved love. Grace is giving undeserved love. Grace is saying, hey, I love you no matter how you're acting, no matter what's going on, no matter what kind of day you're having. You're having a bad hair day, that's okay. I'm in love with you. You're having a rough time right now. You're snappy and you got some attitude, but I'm going to keep on loving you. Add grace to your partner's life. The more kids you have, and the more ministry you have, and all the stress of the mission field, you can easily quit doing that. So give it all you have. Don't just let your marriage roll by. Don't just act like it's all going to be okay. We're all going to be fine and I don't have to worry about it. Don't act like that. If you act like that, you're asking for trouble in your marriage. Men, walk wisely with your wife. Walk wisely with your wife. If you don't walk wisely with your wife, it hinders your prayer life because you're not walking wisely with your wife. And it takes wisdom to walk with your wife because they're not like us. Men and women are not alike. And we're not talking about physical features even. I'm telling you, they don't even think like we think. They don't feel like we think. They are different. And we have to work at how to walk wisely with our wife. I'd like to take just a few minutes to give you some mistakes I think husbands make, and then I'm going to give you a few I think wives make, and may quit there. If you have any questions, you can feel free to send them to me, but we'll just see. So some husband mistakes rapidly. Never have anything that is hidden from your partner, not passwords, file drawers, office, or whatever. Okay. A mystery I worked with was, OCD? And he didn't let his wife into his office. And he didn't let her in his desk, and he didn't give her his password. And he had a file. Now, in his defense, he would have told you, I like everything just so, and I don't want her messing with it. Well, I'm just the opposite. I don't really care about it that much. And Betty's more like, I want to come in there and fix everything you left in such disorder. But having a room closed off seems to make your wife feel like there's something he's hiding. So I want to tell you to go ahead and give your wife a key to every place you go. I want you to give her all your passwords. I want you to have nothing hidden from her. She ought to be able to access anything you have and anything that you are. You are one flesh. I always joke and say this, there's only a couple of times a year you can lie to your wife. Birthdays, anniversaries, Christmas. You know, you don't have to always tell her everything about that because she's going to find out soon. And it's certainly nothing you're hiding from her. But I want to challenge you to have an open door policy. When I was in Arequipa, to get into my office required 3 keys if everything was locked down. The outer gate, then the gate to my secretary's, the door to my secretary's office, and then the door to my office. And as soon as we got through building that, I went and got my set of keys. So I had 3 keys. That would only be needed if it was at night and had locked the outer door, or the secretaries weren't in or whatever, because there were several secretaries in that room. But I gave Betty all 3 of those keys. Now, I'm not even sure she ever used them, but I think it says a lot to you to walk into her and say, here's your copy of all my keys. Be careful to make sure nothing is being hidden from your spouse. I say this because I've watched it happen. Almost everything I say, husbands, comes from stuff I saw happen on the mission field. Do not control her with money. You are one flesh. What is yours is hers. What is hers is yours. We were on a mission field a long time ago, and we were visiting. Betty and I were there visiting this married couple, and I was in the truck with the man, and the wife got out with my wife to show her some things as we went around the block. It was a long time ago. It was 30 years ago. And we came back around, and his wife got in the car, and she had spent $3 without asking him. And in the car, we heard a massive fight about that, for real. And I was in another place, and the wife went over to her husband and says, "Could I have some money to spend with the ladies as we all go get coffee?" And he was like, "How much money you need?" Blah, blah, blah. Treating her like she was a child or a second class citizen. I just would like to say to you, you wouldn't want to be treated that way. And so you don't treat your wife that way. You say, "Well, I can't trust my wife with money." Then you have some discipline work to do, don't you? You have some training to do, because if you can't trust your wife, you need to help her learn and grow so you can trust her. That's just the way things work. It is a mistake not to be your wife's spiritual leader. First person you pastor is your wife. The first person you pastor is your wife. Most important member of your ministry, your wife. She needs to pray. She needs to read her Bible. She needs to be faithful to church. She needs to know you're spending time with her. If you can't get her to grow and trust God, then how can you do the same with others? The person who loves you and shares your bed with you, washes your dirty underwear, and fixes your meals, if you can't get that loving person to love Jesus, then you need to question whether or not you need to be in the ministry. So your wife ought to think, "He's my pastor. He has taught me so much Bible. He is a great man of God. He is the same guy at home as he is at church." Don't just expect that you deserve or have the right to have your wife serve you and do things for you. Somewhere along the way, we kind of get like, when we're dating, I will serve you the rest of your life. As soon as we're married, it's like, now you're supposed to take care of me. That's your job. Now you're supposed to take care of me. That's your job. And I would just want to say to you that it doesn't really work well that way. Don't just expect her to treat you like that. I kind of grew up that way, to be honest with you. I grew up on a farm, and on the farm, men worked outside, women worked inside. I didn't have to worry about washing clothes. I didn't have to worry about fixing meals. Later on, I would. And so when my glass got a little bit empty, we'd just shake it. One of our sisters or our mom and dad would go get it and fill it back up. Our mom would fill it up. And it was almost like the king came home and you owe me. That's not the way it works. Say thank you. Help. Do your share to help and let your wife know you care. Okay, I shouldn't need to say this one, but don't look at other women. We want to look at other women. It's a natural male phenomenon. It's like we have a radar that senses when a woman that's pretty is walking by, so we can run our eyes over there and take a peek. And your wife notices that. And she feels with that you're looking at her and not looking at that girl and not her. We were at one church years ago, and my wife said to me, "Boy, I really like that pastor." And I said, "Really? Why?" And she said, "Because he never looks the girls over." And I said, "What?" And she said, "Well, when a lady was in the pulpit singing a special, the pastor sitting on the platform behind her, he put his eyes on her face or on her head, and he never looked down." I would have never noticed, but my wife noticed. And so I want you to be very careful not to look at other women, and don't compare her to others. I wish you could preach, teach like that lady. I wish you could cook like that lady. I wish you could clean our house like that lady. Don't you ever do that. That is totally foreign to the way Christians ought to do things with others. Don't do that. Help her with the children, and do not consider your children to be a hindrance or bother when it comes to ministry. One of the greatest gifts God ever gave you was to let you be a dad. I'll just be blunt honest with you. I've been a dad now for 47, 48 years. My son was born in 1975. I love being a dad. I love being a dad. I have loved it since my wife told me she was pregnant. I loved it a whole lot more when they were born. And even as grown adults, my children are like the most special in the world to me. And you've got to be very careful because, your wife is slower getting ready. She got more stuff to carry. You got all this to do, but the greatest blessing God ever gave you was those children. I want you to take it seriously, and I want you to say thank you, and I want you to help her with them. They're not her kids. I was just reading this past week, and David Livingston got a little bit feisty. He said, I don't know why that woman gets pregnant so much. She's like a factory in England. And I read that to Betty, and she started laughing and said, I guess he didn't figure that one out. But he was just upset because she kept popping out babies. Well, you had a part in that, buddy. And David Livingston, the only way I guess he quit having kids, he left her and went to Africa. Your kids are not in the way. Fact is, your kids are your arrows you're preparing to shoot into the enemy territory and do great things with. Your children will do more for the cause of Christ than you could ever imagine. All right, let me give you another one, I think. You got to control your parents and make them know that your wife is first. If not, you're committing a major mistake. Now, what do I mean by that? I mean by that in-laws can be outlaws. I mean by that in-laws can stick their nose in way too much. I mean that, one, in-laws can rob the dignity of the son-in-law. They can rob the dignity of the son-in-law. You make sure nobody's trying to get in here. They can rob the dignity of the son-in-law. They can do the same to the daughter-in-law. And so I told my mother, I said, you don't mess with Betty. You mess with Betty, you mess with me. And the Fergusons, they would make comments sometimes at the very beginning about maybe some things I did that were a little not the way they do it. And so Betty had to let them know, we don't do that. We don't talk bad about Austin. We don't talk bad about Betty. That's one of your jobs. Make sure to talk to your parents and get them clear on that. If you don't, you're literally asking for trouble. Learn to say you're sorry. Learn to say you're sorry. She's not the only one that made the mistake. She's not the only one that's wrong. You are wrong. You make mistakes. You need to learn to say, I'm sorry, I made a mistake. And you need to make sure and have that so that you would regularly let it be known that you're asking forgiveness. Say, I'm sorry. Quit being I'm always right. I'm the big man of God. Your wife knows you better than that. And so be careful and ask forgiveness. Do not make quick changes without preparing her. This is a major missionary problem here. And that is that you want to change houses, change cities, change ministries. You want to go from here to there, and you want to do all this, and you haven't talked it over with her, so it's a surprise to her, and she is going to be hurt by that and offended. So don't make quick changes without talking to her. And also don't make quick changes without preparing her. Let her know this is where we're going. This is what it's going to be like. This is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to take care of it. This is why it works that way. Make sure that you get her ready. Now, you got to remember this about a woman. God made her a nest builder. She builds a nest for her babies. She wants to take care of her babies, and she doesn't want you turning over the apple cart. She doesn't want you messing things up so her kids aren't taken care of. And sometimes men are just pretty flighty. They're like, I'm going to jump over and do this. I'm going to jump over and do that. And she's like, what in the world? Slow down and get with real life, would you please? So I want to tell you, don't make quick changes out. So like if you know you're going to move from one place to another, start telling her weeks, months before. Talk it over with her, make a plan, let her see it, and help her be ready for whatever's coming. Get her involved in the thinking and planning so it's not a shock to her. You see, the problem is when you shock her. I think we're quitting. We're going home as missionaries. Don't do that. I think we're changing from this country to that country. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. You need to involve her in it. Quit acting like you run the show. You are one flesh. And so you want to keep that in mind at all times. Listen to your wife's opinion, which is pretty hard. Shut up. Be quiet. Let her talk and let her tell you why she doesn't like that idea or why she does like that idea. That's reasonable. God gave her a brain. She's not stupid. The only stupid thing she did was marry you. Let her give her opinion. Let her ask questions. Don't feel threatened because she asks questions. If you don't have good answers, get good answers. Help your wife grow spiritually and help her help the children. The children's spiritual growth is your responsibility, not just the wife's. And my wife prayed with our kids. My wife prayed with our kids every night before they went to bed, and all. But it's my responsibility too. It is my responsibility also to help her, and I want to challenge you to work at that. Do not think you can make her or command her to do things. I think that's another thing. It's so funny. You wouldn't let the pastor tell you what to do. You wouldn't let the mission board tell you what to do. And yet you think your wife ought to just snap to and say, yes, sir, Sergeant, sir, I'll do what you say, Sergeant. And you're just jerking her around. You lovingly lead her gently and kindly. You don't make her do things. You don't say, she'll do what I say. That's not the way to be a spiritual leader of your wife. We are leaders, not dictators. We are leaders, not dictators. Let your wife know where you are and what you're doing. I don't think, we use different apps to know where each other are. I don't ever want to go anywhere that Betty doesn't know where I am. I want to call her. I want to keep her posted. I want her to know. I'm not hiding anything from her. I'm not sneaking around on her. And she can call me anytime she wants, and she can know what I'm doing. The only time I would try to hide my location would be if I was buying her a present. And so that's it. Just remember that. You don't hide that. Always take her calls. Always take her calls. Now be careful that you take her calls. She needs to know other people can't get through to him, but I can. Now, if you're in the middle of doing a broadcast or whatever, tell her before you start and say, I will be doing this for this long. And unless that way, if she calls you, you know it's an emergency. Now, before I finish for today, because I think maybe you're probably thinking, what in the world? Why is he talking about that? This is not what we need on the mission field. I really believe it is. In the last few weeks, I've heard of 2 missionary families in marriage trouble. One a national and the other an American. I don't want you having to go through this. So let me tell you wives a little bit. I think you do. And I hope that your wife is listening. If she's not, I hope she's involved in with Katie and all the things going on with the women. But I hope that doesn't mean she just cut out and doesn't listen to this. Ladies, do not try to control your husband with sex or affection. It's not a bartering tool. It's not, if you don't do this, I'm not giving you that. Don't do that ever. That's not biblical. That's not right. 1 Corinthians chapter 7 makes it very clear. You do not own your body, and he does not own his body. Don't let your discouragement cause you not to do your duties at home as you take care of your home. Being on the mission field and learning the language can put you into a funk. I mean, discouraged and wanting to quit and not knowing what to do. Yes, it can do all of that to you. But you need to be careful that no matter what, you're going to get up and do what you're supposed to do. Don't be crazy. Don't let it happen. Just make sure you're not going to do that. I want you to know, ladies, that complaining is the opposite of gratitude. And sometimes you girls like to whine. And so what you're trying to do is manipulate and control. So you're saying, I got a problem. And you're complaining. And that's the opposite of gratitude. And it's typically only going to make him mad. I would far rather you look at me and say, would you please consider doing this, than I would to have you say to me, whatever you're complaining about. Now, God called us to be a grateful people, not a complaining people. And complaining is like talking to the devil. It's like praising the devil, saying, God's not good, my husband's not good. Don't do that. None of us should be complainers. Husbands, you shouldn't be complainers. None of us ought to be complaining. Express your appreciation for your husband's provision. Lady, you ought to say thank you. I asked him to say thank you when it was his turn, recall that. And so don't think I didn't say it to both of you, but you need to express your appreciation for your husband's provision. You need to say thank you for all you do. You got out there, he raised that support. He cuts off enough of that support to take care of you and help you and meet your needs. Say thank you. Tell your husband you admire him and give him details. By that, I mean, you don't say you're just the greatest without giving a detail, because it comes off as a platitude. It comes off as something that doesn't say much. To say, I really enjoyed that message, and this is what really drove it home. That's like, oh, thank you. You are good looking. Saying that to your wife is better. It's better to say, boy, I love your lips. You got the cutest lips in the world. In other words, find details and say thank you for details. And that means you're not just saying what you're saying. Don't try to get your husband to be who he isn't. Now, I want to say this to you. On the mission field, you're working with other missionaries, and you see another missionary, and you're like, boy, he does it right. And so you're trying to manipulate and push your husband into that. Don't do that. Don't do that. Don't try to get your husband to be who he isn't. It's just not what you want to do. You married him, love him like he is and for who he is, and help him be all that God is asking him to be and sent for him to be. Be happy with the man God gave you. Be happy with the man God gave you. You're not trying to get him taller or shorter or thinner or fatter. You're not trying to get him to have more hair or less hair. You're not trying to get him to be anything. You're like, God gave me a special gift. And if God grows you, you're going to be very thankful, but you need to be happy where you are today, not waiting on tomorrow. Earlier, I told the man to control his family and tell him to not mess with the daughter-in-law. And I'm telling you to be doing the exact same thing. Be careful that you let your parents know, don't criticize to me or anybody else my husband. Never take your marriage problems to others. If you're having marriage problems, take them only to someone who's going to help you and not spread that around and not ruin it. Your marriage is not to be talked over with the ladies at church or with other missionary wives. You're not saying negative things about your spouse. Only person you should talk to would be someone who would be able to help you fix that. Now, I say that honestly to you. If you knew what I know about a lot of marriages, it'd blow your mind. They came to me and they talked to me, but I haven't ever said a word to anybody, not a word to anybody. And so I just want to tell you, don't be talking, because it'll get back to your husband that you were talking about him. Don't keep bringing up the failures in the past. Well, he was lazy on deputation, or he didn't finish language school like he ought to. And you keep trying to discipline him. You're not his mother. You're not his mother. He didn't marry you to be his mother. He doesn't want you to be his mother. He wants you to be his wife. He wants you to be his lover. He wants you to be his admirer. He wants you to be his cheerleader. I can remember when I was in high school, we went to a puny little school and we didn't win a lot of ball games. And I saw one day they tackled this, one of our guys, and just about killed the poor guy. He's laying on the ground. They're running out there with a stretcher, and everybody got real quiet. And then when he got up and stood up, everybody started hollering, "He's a warrior. He's a warrior." And the truth is, you could have said, "He's a loser. We can't make any points." But that's not what you do. You don't do that unless you're married. And then in marriage, it's like you're going to remember every failure your husband's ever had, and you're just really going to hurt him. I want to challenge you not to do that. Learn to forgive and not remember. Now, I want you to notice I was careful to say learn to forgive and not remember. I didn't say learn to forgive and forget, because it's pretty hard to forget. It's pretty hard to forget, but you can choose not to remember. God is perfect. And he says he doesn't remember our sins. He didn't say he forgot them. He did bury them in the sea and put them behind his back. But what happens is God looks at it and says, I'm not going to think about your sin when I think about you. I'm not going to bring up your sin. I'm not going to remember your sin when I think about you. I'm not going to do that. Well, then be careful and do the same with your husband. Forgive and don't keep bringing it up. Okay, I talked to your husband about talking to you and not just starting new plans. And you probably were happy to hear that. But on the other side, you need to be flexible. And your priorities need to be his priorities. And this aggravates a lot of new girls. It's like, no, I'm the man of God too. I'm the woman of God. Whatever you want to say. But God made your husband, he gave him a job to do it. He made you his helpmeet, his help exactly like he needed, his co-worker to help him accomplish God's will. I know you hate that. I didn't say it, God did. He didn't make a garden for Adam and a different garden for Eve. He didn't make a garden for Adam and then give Eve something different to do. He made them one flesh and gave them a job to do. That doesn't mean you can't have your other interests, but you need to realize, I knew a pastor in Peru that was married to a medical doctor, and I was always very worried about that because I knew what that meant. The doctor is going to tell the pastor where to go. We can make more money here. There's an opening for my practice here. And it's easy for the cart to get before the horse if you're going to try to do things biblically. You were made to be a helpmeet, not the leader. He does not want or need another mother. I think maybe you're probably aggravated at me. You're probably aggravated at me now. I can only assume that you are. But God didn't make you to be the leader of this thing. And so you want to be careful to follow it and make sure he knows that you trust his decision and leadership. I'll ask him to talk to you, ask him to listen to you. But he needs to know that you believe he's the man of God and that he can be trusted. Tell your husband what you want instead of making him guess and then getting angry when he can't figure out how to please you. Now, let me put that in real easy. Girls won't say what they want. Where you want to go eat? I don't care. Well, if I mention a place, you don't want to go there. And so you won't tell me, so I start guessing, and then you get mad because I can't guess it. And if you want something, say it. I love my wife, and she's listening, but she won't tell me sometimes. She just won't tell me, but then I hear all the hints, and I hear all the things she says. And so then I go buy whatever I think she was hinting at. And then she said, I didn't want that. Why'd you buy that? And I'm like, what in the world? Why don't you just tell me what you want so I know how to deal with it? I want to help you. I want to be good to you. Nagging has never worked and it never will. So ladies, stop doing the nagging. Do not keep calling and interrupting your husband. When your husband's out doing the ministry, out doing his job, I told him to answer the phone, but you don't need to abuse that at all. He has to work, and though he will talk to you, you should not take advantage of that. Don't try to make him not do his job. He's not learning the language. He's not starting churches. He's not leading souls to Christ because you don't give him a break. So don't be a clingy wife. Don't be a clingy wife. It'll only cause trouble. So I will give you some protections. I'm almost finished, but let me give you some protections that should be in place in every marriage. No friendships with the other sex. No friendships with the other sex. It's been said that I hate girls. I don't hate girls. I'm just leery of girls. And so I have a very special, sweet, and loving relationship with my wife, my daughters-in-laws, my granddaughters, etc. But you got to, both of you, stay away. I've known of adultery taking place because they started planning the music program for a big revival. Don't discuss your marriage problems with anyone unless they can help. Do not discuss them with someone of the other sex. Never tell another man, ladies, My husband this or my husband that. Don't do it. It'll only get you in trouble. Be publicly affectionate so that other people know that you're taken and you're happy. The Bible calls them strange people in the book of Proverbs. In other words, if you hold hands, if you sit close together, if you put your arm around each other or whatever, everybody's like, I ain't messing with that person. They are happy. Work at keeping the romance in your marriage. You've been married, we've been married 50 years in August. It takes a little bit of work to keep the romance, but we've got to work at it. Be attentive to each other's needs sexually and emotionally. Both of you should be looking at your partner and saying, what is it that you need? Do you need some time alone? Do you need some to go to the doctor? Do you need some attention sexually? What is it? Notice and pay attention and work at that. Now, basically, I am about to finish up here, but marriage is built on trust, confidence, nothing else. So if you can't trust each other, you're not going to have a good marriage. I have never, in all the years I've been married to Betty, I've never doubted she was going to do something to hurt me, ever, not one time. Husbands who will not allow the wife to spend money worry me. It really does. It bothers me that you would be stingy with the money. Remember, your wife's face is a reflection of your spiritual life. If she is sad, that says something about how you are leading. If your wife is sad, if your wife has a sad face, does that have anything to do with the fact that you might be not leading well spiritually? Never threaten your spouse with divorce, separation, going home, calling parents, calling pastors. Don't do it. We don't use threats in our marriage. Please hear that and remember that. Fix your problems on short order. That means if you're mad, get it fixed before the sun goes down. If you fuss and fight it, just say, we'll have us a good one, but we're going to fix it. And last one of all, it isn't, I thought it was, work at having a strong sex life. Work at having a strong sex life. Good night. I got more than I thought, but I will stop right here. I'm going to go to right there. Work at having a strong sex life. 1 Corinthians chapter 7, 1 through about 5, read that. Your body doesn't belong to you, and we're working at pleasing each other. Ladies, remember, he is not your helpmeet. Quit acting like you can't go a full day without your husband's help. Men, hire a maid or whatever you need to do to help your wife. If you live in a third world country, it's easy to get a maid. If you live in a more advanced country, get her some good, get her the best vacuum cleaners and the best washing machines and dishwashers or whatever would help her get the job done. Don't have unreal time expectations. So, men, 60, 70 hours a week is enough to count everything you do. That leaves you about 40 hours to spend with your family. Do it. Men, your wife is your friend, not your maid or your slave. Learn to talk to each other and not at each other. I think you know what that means. And that's all for today on marriage. I'll stop right there. I love you. You may have questioned why I'm doing this, but I'm afraid some of your marriages could be in trouble, and I don't want them to be. And I love you, and I care about you. And so I'm asking you to be very careful to work at building a strong marriage. I would rather you get out of the ministry and keep your marriage. I would rather you quit being a church planner, but keep your marriage. I would rather you realize that your marriage is your number 2 priority. Number 1, God. Number 2, marriage. Number 3, ministry. Let's work on keeping a marriage that brings honor to the word of God. I love you guys. I thank God for the opportunity to talk to you. Be back in a couple of weeks. Lord willing, you won't have to just listen to me. We'll have a little more conversation, but thank you for being here, and God bless each of you as you have tried to serve the Lord, and I will talk to you the next time.